Good evening and welcome to Business Today on ChannelEye. On this program, we talk about business, entrepreneurship and many insightful topics with high-profile individuals. To make sure you don't miss anything on today's episode as well, keep tuning in. This is Business Today. Guest is the Chairman and Chief Executive of the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, and he's ready to talk to us about many things on today's program. To see who today's personality is, let's take a look at the character profile. Suresh is the Chairman of the Export Development Board. He's also the Chairman and CEO of Sport Fishing Lanka, a responsible tourism, catch and release sport fishing operation, and the Chairman of EcoWave Limited and EcoWave Travels, which are social enterprises working with 300 smallholder spice and herb farmers in the Monaragala, Badulla, Kandy, Matale and Ampara districts, promoting sustainable organic agricultural and responsible eco-agro-tourism. He is also a Group Director of Citrus Leisure PLC, which operates 3 star-class hotels in Sri Lanka. Suresh had his primary and secondary education at St. Thomas's Prep School, Kolpiti and St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, Sri Lanka. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Agricultural Engineering from the California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo, California, and worked for 10 years as an agricultural and environmental engineer for CH2M Hill Incorporated in the USA. He returned to Sri Lanka in 1990 and invested in Tangol, a post-conflict area at the time, to employ unemployed young women and earn foreign exchange for the country. His company manufactures designer fishing flies, handcrafted artificial sport fishing bait for export to a niche market in the US and the world. Today, the company employs 200 women in Nugegada, Tangol and Ratnapura and celebrates producing the world's best quality Umqua brand fishing flies for 40 years. Suresh actively serves on the Council of the Employers Federation of Ceylon, the boards of the Hambantota District Chamber of Commerce, the Skills Development Fund Limited, Navajivana Rehabilitation, Tangol, and several other government and non-government boards and committees for the development of SMEs, capacity building regional chambers of commerce, entrepreneurship and ecosystem building, vocational training and skills development, labor relations, responsible tourism, sustainable organic agriculture, SME exports, rehabilitation and empowerment of differently abled persons and peace building. He is also the acting managing director of the Sri Lanka chapter of Global Entrepreneurship Network, the largest global entrepreneurial ecosystem. Suresh believes in building strong networks, ecosystems, local and global, that empower and improve lives of people through collaborative and inclusive relationships. He also strongly believes that people working together can make Sri Lanka the wonder of Asia. Mr. Suresh Dimel, I'd like to welcome you to the program. Good evening.
Good evening, Prashant.
All right, now to start off today's line of questions, I'd like to start off by asking you, what are your thoughts on the present situation and how can the exports sector contribute to it?
Yeah, the present situation is unprecedented, to put it mildly. We haven't had an experience like this in our lifetime. And the whole world is going through many challenges at this time. We are seeing mostly what's happening in Sri Lanka, but many parts of the world are also challenged. Now, as an exporter myself and the chief of the Export Development Board, which is the apex body for export development and promotion in Sri Lanka. So I feel that exports have a fantastic opportunity through this, because there has been a disruption in the marketplace, and it is advantageous to us, to Sri Lanka. Today we have more orders for production than we have had before, being that the American economy, where we send most of our exports to, is booming. So we have a great opportunity to ship to America. And we also have opportunities in adding value to our product. Now, one of the things that is being in demand around the world is things like health food, superfood, which Sri Lanka has an abundance of. So I can see that being a fantastic opportunity for Sri Lanka after the pandemic.
All right. Now, speaking of the export sector, we know that it has contributed in many ways to the economy. And speaking about numbers or maybe even ballpark figures, how much revenue or has the export sector actually gained a substantial amount of revenue?
Yes, you know, we've actually, we are growing in certain areas. For the last 10 months, we've averaged $1 billion each month. And we've even the April numbers were better than any April before, which shows that we were resilient even through the pandemic. With all the challenges, we seem to be growing, and I think that's a good trend. And I hope that more people will switch to exports and make the best of it.
Definitely. And how important is it for us to make exports a national priority?
Well, it's at the moment, exports are the only way we can increase foreign exchange. And what we have today is a foreign exchange crisis. So in order to improve the situation, we have to get that foreign exchange in. And I think the easiest way would be to increase our exports.
And how can the EDB and other state agencies actually support this movement?
Yeah, and that's really where we need to be recognized as a national priority, because we need to collaborate with many ministries, many departments of government in order to make exports a priority, you know, because we are not the only we can't do exports in isolation. Because agriculture, industries, plantations, all those have a role to play in supply development, you see, and then EDB can help them with our knowledge to take them to a global market.
Right. Now, speaking of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has affected all sorts of sectors, private, public, and things like that. How has the COVID-19 pandemic actually affected the export sector, and how has the export sector recovered from it?
Yeah, the challenges initially were the days of curfew and so on, where the EDB had to be on its toes and facilitate our export manufacturers to continue operations. And that we did quite well, and it appears that our numbers stayed up in spite of the pandemic, and we were able to achieve our, targets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've basically recovered from it, and do you see an increase now that it's over?
Yeah, like I said, we've had unprecedented growth over the last 10 months or so.
Great. Now, you're not just the chairman and chief executive of the EDB. You also have many other ventures. And speaking of Sport Fishing Lanka and also Lanka Fishing Flies, what do you exactly do in those companies?
Yeah, Lanka Fishing Flies was my first export venture, which we started 40 years ago, and I was in the US at that time. And of course, in those days, we had to go to trade fairs and visit shops in order to understand markets. And I didn't know much about this niche market. It's a niche market product, fishing flies, which is about 10% of the global sport fishing industry. And I lived in an area in Oregon and California which was famous for fly fishing. So I learned a lot from my school friends and all, who used to go fishing all the time. And of course, the distributor was also from the area. And I was able to, and we started a joint venture. I think that was the best thing that happened to us, because they did all the distribution and marketing and all that, and they gave us the technology to produce the world's best fishing fly. So I encourage people to look at niche markets and also have partnerships, so that you can build a good product. I would also say that some lessons learned is that we aren't able to sell everything to everybody. We have to identify the proper place. Now, for the first 10 years, I think we sold everything to everybody. And then we realized what our comparative advantage was. And then we realized very quickly that Sri Lanka didn't have a lot of labor. In 1980 when we started, we had labor, but then gradually the labor force dwindled, and we figured moving up in the value chain would be the only way to maintain our revenue and profitability. And that happened more than we expected, because there was a better market for us at the top. And so we gave up the mass market maybe, and then went more and more into the niche market, the specialty stuff, the custom designs and all that, and we maybe change 20 to 50% of our product line every year, and maintain a very high profile in the marketplace. So that industry sort of turned into a tourism industry also for me, because I figured Sri Lanka is surrounded by a fantastic ocean, where people say fish are dying of old age. So I thought many people of my colleagues in the industry wanted to come to Sri Lanka to go fishing, but we don't have any infrastructure. So after the end of the war, we were able to build a boat in Sri Lanka that was capable of doing some good fishing, and we were allowed to have the outboard motors with high horsepower.
So you built it from scratch, or did you customize?
We customized it for our, we had a boat builder do it.
Right.
And then we, after that we went to a partnership with an Indian company, and that was for about 4 years, where we learnt a lot from them, and we actually imported 2 boats specially for ocean sea, deep sea fishing. And after that, the Indians sort of gave our, they got frustrated because of the lack of infrastructure in Sri Lanka. And I am still running the operation, but we built another new boat which is more economical than the so I'm still a startup after maybe 10 years, but a lot of opportunity there. But we have to get our infrastructure right, and I think there is a huge opportunity for that's a niche market tourism product and high value, and I hope that I will be able to showcase that product one of these days and help our tourism industry.
Certainly. Now, as the chairman of EcoWave, how important do you think that this line of work is for the country? Like, do more people need to engage in these sorts of activities? Yeah,
now EcoWave is primarily a spice processing operation.
Yeah.
That's what we have. We have a spice processing plant in Buttala, on Ragala district. And this was started to assist local farmers who are mostly home gardens, right? Now, the beauty of home gardens is they don't apply chemicals, so it could be organic. And in the world market, there is a need or the demand for organic spices, especially because spices are considered like health food and so on. So they don't want any chemicals in it, and it's high price. And the world market is full of substandard product and mixed product. So we in Sri Lanka now we have got this global indication for Ceylon cinnamon, which is like a single origin spice. Now that is very important. Like in tea, you have Darjeeling tea, which is highly priced. And that's because it's single origin and it only comes from Darjeeling. Likewise, here we have Ceylon cinnamon that hopefully is a new product in the market. Now we have to sell it as a new product in the market and then go to that market that is going to pay the price for that product as a single origin product. So I think, if you look back in history, the Dutch and the Portuguese, they all colonized us for the spices. And that is what was native to Sri Lanka. And we do have the world's best spices, from cinnamon to black pepper, all the way down even to cardamom, which was not native to Sri Lanka. It comes from South America, but they claim that the cardamoms are better quality here than in South America. So obviously Sri Lanka has a fantastic soil, and we can celebrate that. But we do have to do in an international market to get the best price. It should be organic, and we can promote it as a highly nutritious product. And so it's very important, because Sri Lanka is an agricultural economy. And I think exporting agricultural value-added agricultural products, I must emphasize that. We should not be, most of it is still being exported as commodity and just traded, What we need to do is to add value, and that's what EcoWave is all about, is adding value to a product and hopefully be able to transfer that added value to the farmer themselves and improve their livelihoods, And we have many products like that. In Sri Lanka, we now have about 400 organic certified exporters and about 12,000 organic certified farmers. So that's it's not something that is uncommon, actually. We can find but there is a lot of opportunity for improvement.
Yeah. Now, I'd also like to ask you, what is your role in the Employees Federation of Sri Lanka, in short?
Well, labor, from day one I was very interested in empowering our labor and how we, and our labor laws and things like that. Maybe they are not. So I was invited to represent the SME sector at the Employees Federation. So I represent SMEs as well as the district level chambers of commerce at the Employees Federation.
All right. Now, as the acting managing director of the Sri Lanka Global Entrepreneurs Network, how important do you think it is for Sri Lanka to have entrepreneurs? And also, we were having a discussion before the program. We were talking about how businessmen and entrepreneurs, they are technically the same, but there are a few differences between entrepreneurs. How important do you think it is?
See, for me, an entrepreneur is someone who takes risks and also is well networked. In today's world, entrepreneurs have to be networked. We cannot do things in isolation. More and more, even after the pandemic, people are collaborating. And not only collaboration, we have to build ecosystems. That is, policymakers, industrialists, investors, bankers, all of them have to come together in an ecosystem. And that is what Global Entrepreneurship Network is all about, is a multiple stakeholder ecosystem. And showing people that we all need to work together, and now after the pandemic, we should not be duplicating our efforts. Let's put our resources together, and now there is a concept called value chain integration, where you find what your, the segment of the value chain that you can be do a good job.
Yeah.
Your comparative advantage, right? And then you focus on doing that, and let somebody else do the other parts of the value chain, right? And that's very popular in component building. Now Sri Lanka is growing in electronic and electrical components because there is a huge demand in our region in South Asia for that. And also with automotive components and with our rubber industry and so on, there's a lot of opportunity for automotive components. And we can see, South India is the third largest manufacturer of automobiles in the world. So there is an opportunity just to, send it across, across the sea. And so, yes, that's networking. That's what Global Entrepreneurship Network is all about.
Right. Now, we have many aspiring young entrepreneurs who are watching the program. What words of advice would you have for them?
Most important thing is use your smartphone. And I know young entrepreneurs, young people love to do everything on the smartphone. Google, like a friend of mine said, you can do brain surgery by Googling. Like that, in the olden days, 40 years ago, we had to go to trade fairs, we had to go to marketplaces to learn all that. Today, all that is here in your smartphone. And so you can have, and that's the most important thing. If you're going to export or you're going to manufacture something and you want to be an entrepreneur, the best thing is start with the market. See what the market needs, right? And then, if you're like Steve Jobs, you will change the market mentality, and or Elon Musk. They are disruptors. Okay, now if you have confidence that you can disrupt a world market, that's what you should do, right? But otherwise, you go look at the markets, find out which one, and you have to do something you like. Okay, just because it's available here, you can't sell it to everybody in the world. Okay, so it's better to start with something you really love. If you love agriculture, if you love some industry, handicraft, whatever it is, go look at the marketplace for that product, and then focus and cater to that market. And then it is about quality, volume, and price. You have a high quality product that will attract a good price, right? Figure out what the market price should be. Obviously that's again available online. And then volumes, because certain markets, like if you're going to supply a supermarket, you will need to have large quantities regularly, which Sri Lanka finds quite challenging. I prefer the niche markets where you can sell one of a kind of products even, and they will buy it. And there is a market for that. Sri Lanka is a small place. We can, and I think we have underestimated the Indian market completely. There are more rich people across in India that we can cater to, and they love Sri Lanka. So this is what I tell everybody. If you don't want to travel all over the world, just let's go to India. And India is well networked online, and so we can do a lot of business online with India.
Right. So now it's easier than ever, and like you said, the information is right at our fingertips. Now, lastly, I would like to ask you, what advice would you have for the people of Sri Lanka? How can we help end this pandemic that we are in, and any words of advice for them?
Yeah. Well, I like to call it social entrepreneurship, where we not only look at our financial bottom line, but we look at the social impact as well as the environmental impact, because that is extremely important going forward. We have to take care of our employees, we have to take care of the community, we have to take care of the ecosystem, the natural ecosystem for our future generations. All that needs to come in, I think, now to make the proper sustainable world. I think the whole world needs to collaborate to make this a better place.
Great, thank you so much. That was Mr. Suresh Dimel, the Chairman and Chief Executive of the Sri Lanka Export Development Board. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Prashant.
All right, and that winds up today's episode of Business Today. Do join us next week as well. Till then, have a good night.